Welcome. Um, we are putting this on under the auspices of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Beekeeping Association. Normally, we meet in the community college in Gaucher. We had a big science room, and it could hold everybody. Um, but we haven't been able to be there since COVID started 2 years ago. So right now, we meet in one of our members in his bee barn. Um, our meetings are the first um, or the second Tuesday of every month. So we'll be having a meeting this coming Tuesday. And so everybody's welcome. If we do a good job here today presenting, you might all come. We'll see. Our mission as a club is to do these four things: education, legislation, networking, and mentoring. Education, we're doing every year we hold one of these meetings, and we also have members who volunteer to go out to schools, out to festivals, various things like that, and we take some of the items you see here to educate people. The club covers a lot of different types of activities as far as what the individuals do. And the presenters will get into that. It's not just one thing. You can produce honey, you can produce other products, you can be in it just for the hobby, just one hive. You don't need to get 500 hives. Start with one. We help out with legislation. We are part of a larger group, the Mississippi Beekeepers Association, MBA, and they work with the legislature. One of the things they do every year is when the legislature starts up, every representative gets a bottle of honey. We want them to remember us because they pass various types of legislation. Bees are livestock according to the law. So there's benefits to keeping livestock. You can do certain things and get certain tax breaks and things like that. We also are able to sell directly honey to the public and bees to the public because it's a farm product. No taxes, no regulations. It's pure, unrefined. We can do that legally. So that's something we always keep an eye on, what the legislature is doing. We do networking. We have about 20 different clubs in the state, and we get together. We have an annual conference. We send members back and forth to give talks and lessons, and some of the things we learn down here apply up north. Sometimes they don't, but a lot of the same principles apply. So there's always new beekeepers coming in, and there's always a need for education, and so we share in that. And we do mentoring. Beekeeping can be scary if you have never been near bees before. We have bees right inside here, and you can come up and see them later. But in a box, you can have up to 80,000 bees. You don't want to get those girls angry. You know, they might come after you. What do? We have mentors. How to open a hive, what to look for, how to take care of them. So there's a lot of information out on YouTube and out on the internet and all sorts of things, but until you get up close to them, it's different. And so we offer mentorship where you can come to, people who are willing to do it. You go out to their hives, out to their apiary, and they'll open things up. They'll make sure you're dressed properly, you know where to stand, what to do, what to look for, and get started right. The worst thing to do is the first time you get stung 3 or 4 times and, okay, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. Not necessary. Okay, I think I was working it for like 6 months before I got my first sting. So if you know how to do it and do it properly, you're safe. So we're going to have 3 classes. The intro, which is today, and there's another one in 2 weeks, life of the hive, how things work, and bee products. And because there's more than one, it's not just honey, there's other things. and then the beekeeping year, month by month by month, what you do, what the bees are doing, know how to be ready for them. And a field day. Field day is where people can go out to a hive. And that will be scheduled on a one, but if you're interested, we'll schedule that. So Bob Collins is our first presenter, and he'll introduce his topic.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Good. Everybody's excited to learn about bees and what all they can do and how to get started. If you told me 3 years ago, just 3 years ago, that I would be a beekeeper, have a business for it, get into bees, and be actually wanting to get into a hive, I would have said you're crazy. I've stayed away from bees, like most people do. But then I started looking into it, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of excellent people out there, and I can tell you about some of them, refer you to them. But got into it, and mainly got into it last year, about May of 2020, looking for something to do, something that didn't require going out, going with people. And, our pastor here, LaRue Stevens, he's a master beekeeper, lives right down the road from me. So I started talking to him. I got some bees, and now we had started a bee yard with 10 hives. Lost a lot of them due to floods and the storm, but we're still going. We're going to catch some more swarms this year and start going again. But anyway, I've recently become a certified apprentice beekeeper through the University of Florida. I'm going to continue on into that program to hopefully maybe one day get up to master craftsman beekeeper. But I got a long way to go. But anyway, topic today is why keep bees. Okay, reasons to keep bees. I'm sure you have a lot of the same reasons I do. They are, see if I can get this going again. There it goes. Why you're some reasons, it's fascinating to learn about them. Bees are very interesting. They are the perfect society. Their workers work for the hive. They don't work for each other, for themselves. They work for the betterment of the hive. And they live and they die by that. You can make money from selling honey, from selling different products of a hive. I've got up here some pollen. I've got propolis, which is bee glue that they make to seal their hive. That's worth a lot of money. You can sell these products and make money with it. But if you're just interested in learning about keeping bees for the environment, that's great too. But bees do a lot. You can support the declining pollinators because of pesticides and things like that. Bees are susceptible to that. So by keeping bees, you're helping bring up the colonies and keep them more. It helps the environment. Bees are pollinators. You can see some pollinators over on the list that a lot of our food is pollinated and can't get pollinated any other way except by bees, butterflies, things like that. You can also teach your children about bees because if you grow up as a child learning about bees, learning what they are, that they're not bad, they won't hurt you unless you try to hurt them, you have better respect for it and can grow up like that. I just learned when I was a kid, bees will sting you, stay away from them. So, and now I go hand first into a hive. May be crazy. So regardless of your reason for doing this, we are here to beekeep with you. We've heard calling some beekeepers beaks. It's a short word for it. So we're here to be partners, to be mentors, and to help however we can. So there's a lot to learn about bees. About 4,000 bees together weigh a pound. They're very light. You can get a measuring cup, a 1 cup of them, and that's about 300 bees. They're very small and takes a lot to make them. One bee, during its lifetime, from the time it is able to start going out and foraging on it, makes about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. And that's about how much I have in this jar. From birth to death, that's how much honey a bee makes. And it takes, to make 72 teaspoons, which is this 1 pound jar of honey, would take about 864 bees to fill that up in their lifetime of what they can collect. So you think of it, bringing honey in, bringing nectar in, they are, but it takes a lot. And so that kind of gives you an idea. One thing about bees have sexes. They have male and female. The males are called drones. They don't have stingers. They can't sting you, but they go in other hives, and they aren't questioned why. The guard bees just let them in. queens, now the females all do all the work. They do all the work in the hive, everything. They go out, they get the honey, or sorry, they get the nectar, they get the pollen, and they bring it in, and they do all the work. Drones don't. Their one purpose is to go out and find virgin queens and mate with them, and they die in that process. So they don't have any workers there. The queen is the only one that can lay eggs. Unless something extraordinary happens, the only one laying eggs in a hive is the queen. So, and she can also decide, at the time she lays an egg, she can decide if that egg is going to turn into a male or a female. If she, I believe, fertilizes the egg, it becomes a female. If she doesn't, male. And there are way more females in a hive than there are males. So that's the queen decides based on what they need, and she makes the decision. The bees help her make that decision. So the products of a hive, like I said, you get honey. Annually, about 157 million pounds of honey is made in the United States. The average U.S. hive produces about 60 pounds. So, and that's a fair amount. You can get, like I said, you can get wax, and I have samples of my wax up here and some of our products we do. Like I said, this is just wax taken from our hive, melted down, refined, and we can make whatever we want with it. Smells nice too, always smells like honey. So you can make wax, you make candles, beauty products. There's other commercial industrial uses for wax. This presentation hive I have, it was made for us by a person in Serbia. He's polished it with beeswax. So you can polish it. You can make, it's similar to what this, my wife has made a cutting board conditioner. You can use to condition your wooden cutting boards. So beeswax is very useful. Propolis, which is, I have a little bit in this jar up here. It's the stuff bees bring in. Besides bringing in pollen, they also bring in sap and rosins from trees and plants. And they will make that into what's essentially a bee glue. It's antibacterial, antimicrobial, very sterile. They use it to seal up all the cracks in the hive and to keep the temperature regulated and the wind out. When one of my daughters had a spot on her back, it's like a mole, it was acting weird, went to a doctor and they said, we're going to prescribe you this stuff to put on, it'll take care of it, it's made by bees. And this is actually the jar. It actually has propolis. It's a tincture. You put it in, you can grind it up, put it in vodka or alcohol and make a tincture out of it. So it's very, and it helped, it went away. I mean, so this is very good stuff. Bees are also very useful. If they are a product of hive, people raise and sell queens. You have to catch them at the right time, get the right egg, and you can raise and sell queens. Queens go for about $25 to $30 a queen. If your queen dies or whatever, you need to requeen a hive, you send up as a person in Loosedale that will do them. And I think LaRue here is getting into selling queens. Nukes. A nuke is our term for a nucleus, which, as you can imagine, nucleus is the center part of anything. Basically, a nuke is like this. It's 5 frames inside a container. Sometimes they're cardboard, sometimes they're corrugated plastic, sometimes they're heavy-duty plastic like this. When you go to buy your first hive, you will get a nuke. It's the center 5 frames, which is the entire, mostly the entire brood nest of a hive. The rest of the frames on the other side have honey, pollen, but the inside is where all the brood, the baby bees, the larvae, the honey, the capped brood ready to merge into bees is into a nuke. And nukes can go for $125, $150, depending on where you get them. So that's the center part of your hive. You get those, and some people raise up bees to make nukes and sell, and do really good with it. You can sell bees by the pound. Another way to get bees is in a called package. They're in like a wooden and hardware cloth encased box. There's 3 pounds of honey. 3 pounds of bees in there, and that's a few thousand bees. That's how you can also start a colony. Those you get a queen and you put in there. You put with them inside your hive, and that's how you do it. So you can sell bees by the pound. Other way is selling entire colonies. A colony is a group of bees inside a hive. So a hive and a colony are different. A hive houses a colony. But we talk about hives a lot, so that's what we mean to bees. So you get colonies. So there are a lot of bee products from a hive, ways you can make money, or you can just raise bees and be with them, be happy with them. Be happy. Every time I hear the word bee now, it has two E's. For the rest of my life, it will have two E's. I just can't help that. It's just part of it now. Honey production in the United States, out of 2.8 million colonies, 150 million pounds of honey is generated annually. The highest producing states are California, Dakota, Montana, and North Dakota. Mississippi has average of 105 pounds of honey per hive. So there is an industry down here for honey. There's one, Ellisville, somewhere around Wiggins, up there. They raise Russian bees, and they sell the honey. They sell the honey to this drink company that makes a drink, a tea with honey in it, and they're doing well out of a different breed of bees. Sorry, my bees just picked up in volume. I can hear them. Anytime I hear a different volume of bees, you got to kind of watch out. You'll learn how to read the mood of a hive. It's really cool. You're getting in there, they're humming along. If the pitch changes or something, start paying attention. Again, with honey production, wholesale prices are $2 to $2.50 a pound. That's wholesale. Retail to the consumer, $3 to $10 per pound. I'll tell you personally, our first year of doing honey, we had our first year this past year. You sell 1 pound of honey is 12 ounces. Honey is heavier than water. You sell that for $12, and people buy it because it's local, it's unfiltered, and it's real local honey. And people like local. It's reportedly good for allergies and everything like that, so it's really good. But anyway, like I said, honey is an important part. Another part of raising bees, why bees, is increasing the bee population. Like I said, bees aren't flourishing as much as they used to because of pesticides, fungicides, monocultures, mites. The mites down here are called Varroa destructor. When you have the name destructor in your name, it's you know it's going to be bad, and they'll bring in viruses and everything like that, where they do kill hives eventually through viruses and everything, and disease, which is a disease caused by mites. So, good thing is, there just recently came out Friday. They discovered a fungus that will destroy Varroa mites from the inside out. It doesn't hurt bees. The only problem was they couldn't keep up. They couldn't endure the hot temperatures down here. A hive inside is 95 degrees to begin with, but down here it's too hot. They've fixed that. They've bred the fungus, fixed it to where it can withstand high temperatures, and it might be our solution to the Varroa mite, which I hope. The upside is we get more beekeepers. You know, bees are going down. People want to help get more beekeepers. The number of hives goes down each year in the country, but is a net up because people split hives. You take a hive, split it in two, get a new queen. You've doubled your bees. So you can do that and increase your bees. And methods of beekeeping are always improving. I've got a book over here. You know, it's one of the major books. And my wife for Christmas got me a flash drive of bees and beekeeping books from 1850 to the 20th century. Antique books that show, you know, it's just fascinating what they thought bees did and how they thought they operated. But it shows methods are improving every year. People will improve on things. So it's always something new to learn. You never stop learning, and it's just an interesting topic to do. There's also something else bees can do: provide pollination services. I've heard 20 to 30% of all of our food crops require pollination by pollinators. The ones that do need pollination are pollinated by the wind. That's your grains, your corns, are wind pollinated. They don't need bees. But 20 to 30% of the food we eat is pollinated by bees. Like I said, in 2012, the average value of pollinated crops is $29 billion. 2.7 million bee colonies in the United States, 60% travel the country. Particularly the California almond industry is heavily relied on bees. Beekeepers in the north and south, they'll load up their bees on flatbed 18-wheeler trucks. They will haul them to California, put them out there for a few weeks to pollinate the almond trees. When they're done, they'll pick them up, move them to Utah for another crop. Sometimes, if you're lucky, on I-10, between Canal and 28th Street, the exits, there's a slab north of the interstate. There's empty land there. It's just concrete slabs. If you drive by at the right time, you'll see beehives out there. The local beekeepers are gathering together their hives, put them together, and we've driven out there and just parked and let all the bees fly around us. It's pretty cool. And at night, they'll load them up when the bees are in the hives and not coming out. Load them on a truck, put big nets over them, and drive them west. Actually, one of the beekeepers, his dad, they come to this club, Randy McCaffrey. His name is 628 Dirt Rooster on YouTube. Look him up. It's really cool. He went with a group of pollinators out to California this past year. Got stuck in a snowstorm for 3 days on the interstate. Then he put videos on his YouTube channel all about it. So very interesting to learn about. But anyway, that's how the California almond industry survives. Other industries by bringing bees in. So anyway, I believe that's the last one I got. Nope, almost. The California almond orchard, 80% of the global supply of almonds comes from California. And bees are very integral to that. 70% of that sold overseas. 1.6 million colonies of bees are used on 800,000 acres of almonds. So it is, bees are vital just to that industry and to others throughout the country. Okay, that's the last one. I'm almost out of my time. But I want to leave you with one thing, how important bees are. Most everybody likes hamburgers. I like a good hamburger. You can tell that. I love a good burger. Sandwiches are great. I love a good burger. So let's take your average burger, or let's say it's like a Whopper, one that comes with lettuce, tomato, everything on it. Okay, to show you how important bees are, let's expand that. That's the different layers. If you take bees out of the equation, just on hamburgers, a loaded hamburger, you take away the lettuce. The lettuce is pollinated by bees. No bees, no lettuce. Pickles, cucumbers, pollinated by bees. You don't have that. Onions are pollinated by bees. You get rid of onions. Tomatoes are pollinated by bees. No bees, no tomatoes. Mustard, the mustard plant, pollinated by bees. No mustard. Ketchup, so ketchup gone. Cheese is a dairy product, but comes from cows. Cows, the way they are fed, comes from plants that are pollinated by bees. So no dairy. So therefore, also, if you don't have bees, you don't have cows because you don't have the food to feed them. No meat. So you've got a bun. But there's one more thing. You can't say there's a sesame seed bun, right? Guess what? Sesame seeds come from plants that are pollinated by bees. All you're left with, 2 pieces of bread. So, I know it seems kind of dark and doomsday-ish, but without bees, we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have a burger, and I love a good burger. So that's why I raise bees, so I can have a burger. But also, I like the honey. It's sweet, and it makes friends. Got a neighbor? Take some honey to them. Especially if you have bees in your backyard and you want to kind of tell them nothing's going to happen to them. You agree every once in a while you pay them off with a jar of honey. Matthew, our minister of music here, he's helping with the camera and the stuff, and to tell him how much we appreciate him, we gave him a container of creamed honey, taken from our bees. So we can pay people. It's barter system, right, Matthew? All right. So anyway, but that's my time. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Your queen dies, so you get another one. How will the bees recognize?
Good question. The question is, if your queen dies, which can happen, she can die, or accidentally she can be killed by bees. When you go in a hive, you're going to kill some bees. You try not to, but you're going to kill some. Sometimes the queen gets it. You order a queen, or if you raise one, you get a queen. You put her in a little queen cage. There's a certain little device called a queen cage. It has a stopper that's made out of sugar and water. Sugar water is candy. And you put it in there, and you put her in there, and that takes about 3 days for the bees to eat that candy to where she can come out. By that time, they have gotten used to her pheromones. Bees communicate with pheromones, smell. And they have adapted to her. Hey, she's our queen. She's great. They eat it out. She comes out. They're happy most of the time. These bees that we took out this morning, about 10, 15. Within a few minutes, they realized they didn't have a queen. They're not happy, but they're calm because we're keeping them dark. But they recognize without that smell this queen generates from her mandibles, it's queen mandibular pheromone, QMP. Without that, as soon as the other bees, her attendants that are around her touch that, and they get it on them, they move around, they touch other bees, so the bees know there's a queen. Well, when that disappears, they know it within a few minutes. And I can hear the pitch just changed. They'll switch to emergency mode if they see, and you'll see on this frame in here, as long as there's a larva that's like 2 to 3 days old, we're talking about a larva, a little bitty, just hatched from the egg. As soon as they know they're not, they'll start building a bigger cell with wax around it called a queen cup. And actually on this frame in here are 2 queen cups. They're old, but there's no queen. Sometimes they build them just to practice, just to get into the practice. So, but they will build that and try and start feeding that egg and that larva royal jelly. If they feed it the regular food, it becomes a worker. If they feed it royal jelly, it suppresses a hormone or I forget it, a DNA, or it suppresses something within the bee itself and makes her a queen. So yeah, so all females have the ability to be a queen within the 1 or 2 days after becoming a larva. So, oh yeah, bees, that's great. Bees are awesome out of a young one. So that's it. I mean, I can stand here and talk all day, my time, but I'd love to. But we have other people that are just as interesting, or if I am, and can talk to you. The next one is Sharon Gargiulo.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome. I am Sharon Gargiulo, and I am part of Southern Sisters Apiary. I have 2 other sisters, and a husband. That's helpful, but we just call it Southern Sisters Apiary, and a guy sometimes. A little bit about me and how we started in beekeeping was I took a Master Gardener class, and part of that was a class on backyard beekeeping. And I can tell you that every time I'd finish a class, I'd go back to that backyard beekeeping because I found it so interesting. And I mentioned to my husband, I would really like to do backyard beekeeping. And he reminded me that we had a very small yard, like this size, and that it probably wouldn't be great for the neighbors that have swimming pools and hot tubs on both sides of us. But undeterred, I was very determined. I went to my friend and said I wanted to do that. And she said, come on out. Sandy happened to be there at one of our meetings talking about bees. And she said, I've always wanted to do beekeeping. So there we are, Southern Sisters Beekeeping. It's our first year, and so we are still learning a lot. How many, just by a raise of hands, keep bees now? 2, 4, 5. So the rest of you are wanting to keep bees, is that right? Yeah? Well, it's so much fun, I can tell you, and there's so much to learn. So my topic is on what it takes. What it takes is a lot of hard work and appreciation of bees, because once you've decided to be a beekeeper, and I kind of told you why I wanted to be a beekeeper, was because I found it so fascinating. I mean that bees they produce 1/3 of our produce. It's a result of the bees pollinating plants. That's pretty huge, right? 1/3 of that. That's amazing. Plus, they're just so interesting. They're livestock. They really are considered livestock. So once you've decided to become a beekeeper, you really need to do a lot of research. And if you're going to be a beekeeper, how many people want to start like in April keeping bees? Yes. So this class that you're at right now is super important, because you need to start with the knowledge. You need to find a mentor. You need to do all of that stuff before you ever even think about getting a bee. It's so important. So deciding to be a beekeeper is the first part. Understanding the life cycle of a bee. Like when I started, I didn't know that there was a difference between the age of the drones and the worker bees and the queen bee. I had no idea, but now I do. And, I just find all that very interesting. I know someone mentioned, I guess Bob mentioned, and maybe someone else mentioned about watching YouTube videos. I can tell you, watching YouTube videos, you can go down a rabbit hole, and you don't want to do that, because I first went on and I'm like, oh my God, it's so interesting, because there's bee beards that they show you, they've got bee beards, bee hair, bee sleeves, and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. But what I learned was that it wasn't really very useful out in my bee yard to watch all those videos. And when it really came down to it, I didn't know very much about Mississippi and keeping bees in the South. So that was super important to find the resources that are available to you. And we have great resources right here. We have Mississippi State Extension. Dr. Jeff Harris started a program in 2012, I believe it was, and he has done research on just honeybees. You can go to the Mississippi State Extension, and you can find all sorts of information on honeybees. It's incredible, and you can reach out to him, and he's just happy to help you, as well as the bee clubs. Our bee club, Gulf Coast. Gulf Coast Beekeepers Association. Again, I encourage you, whatever it is, get involved in a bee club, because they are your best resources. Like I said, I mentioned I'm a first-year beekeeper, but I have like 3 people on speed dial. I call them when I can't figure something out, and I don't, watching when you need help, it's like, when you have a rash on your arm and you go to Google it and you find out all these other things, and then you kind of are more concerned. So that's kind of how it is with beekeeping. Instead of doing that, Googling it, I will call somebody and say, hey, what about this? And it's much more useful than going down that rabbit hole. And find a suitable location. This is a picture of our beehives, and we're very fortunate that we have trees all the way surrounding us. You can't really see it on this, but all 4 sides have trees, and then we're able to have those hives in a southeast location, so they get the morning sun, but they get some afternoon shade because it gets hot. I would say this is so important to have this right, because those bees can get heated up. A lot of the books you read, they'll say set them out in the direct sun, not in South Mississippi, because they can't survive. So location is super important. Hard work. Does it take some hard work? What do you think? Very hard work. Are you going to get stings? Yeah, you're going to get stings. We actually had somebody, and Sandy's in the audience, my other southern sister, but we have our other one that she didn't get a sting until last week, and she's out there every day without any equipment on, but she wasn't really getting into the boxes. But the bees also knew her because she was out there. Well, finally, the other day, she got a little close raking, and she got a sting. And so now we can say that, she is a beekeeper and not just a bee haver. You can have bees, but to keep them, you really need to get inside the box and do that. The other little thing I'm going to tell you is that when you get a sting, when you get a stinger in you, you want to make sure you scrape it sideways with your fingernail. You do not want to try to go down with tweezers, because you'll only get the venom in deeper. So use a credit card, or take your fingernail, or have somebody take a fingernail and scrape it. And to get 2 to 6 stings a year, or a week, that's not bad. It actually helps build up immunity a little bit, but you don't want to get like 30 to 60, because that could cause an allergic reaction, which we don't want to have. But you've got your EpiPen on hand in case that does happen, right? Everybody knows about an EpiPen? You will. He knows. So again, we talked about the heat in southern Mississippi, and even though the bees love it. They don't mind it as much as we do, because once you get in these bee suits, it gets pretty hot. This summer, I am going to invest in a bee vest, a cooling bee vest that I can put, put little ice cubes in, if you will. They're things that go in the freezer, and I'm going to put that on underneath my bee suit because it does get hot. There are times that you don't have to maybe wear the whole bee suit. You can see I've got my cute little hat here. Sometimes I can just get by wearing that and a white shirt, but I would only do that if I'm just like feeding the bees or checking in, not if I'm getting down there deep. I would wear the whole bee suit just because I don't want to get stung, and and plus the bees die if they sting you. They don't want to. Bees are just they're protecting their hive. They're not mean. They're just protecting their hive. So they don't want to sting you. The weight of the equipment. Yeah, let's talk to this a little bit. Before you get started, I would highly recommend going out to somebody's apiary. You can come out to mine. I'll let you lift a deep box. It weighs about 80 to 90 pounds. And so especially if you don't have somebody that can lift that with you, Sandy knows what I'm talking about, because we gave my husband all the deep boxes because they were just too heavy for us. And even the medium ones weigh 60 to 70 pounds. So going into it, like now what I know going into it, I would have probably gotten all shallows, or I would have went with a horizontal hive. This is the other thing on education. We went to an annual bee convention, and they showed us the horizontal hives, which you guys are really lucky because you're just getting started in it. You should check it out because it's a hive that is long and it has 30 frames, so you don't ever have to lift the boxes that are stacked on top of each other. Especially if you are a woman beekeeper, which I am, so I'm telling you that, check into it. That's super important. Winterizing your bees. We just did that a couple days ago. I talked to my mentors, and they said, you don't have to do anything, Sharon. You can they've got enough honey supplies. We left them all the honey, about 80 pounds of honey per hive. We have 4. And but we still, just for peace of mind, wanted to give them a little bit more. And so we put sugar cake, and then we gave them some Winter Pro. It was warm enough the other day. You don't normally want to crack open the hives, but it was warm, I think, in the 60s, and so it only took us about a minute per hive because we knew what we were doing, and we went in and we opened them up and gave them a little extra food, and now we won't do anything else to them for the winter. We'll probably check them in February, but here we're really lucky because it doesn't get that cold, so there's only really a little bit of time where it's super cold and for them. Mentally staying committed to your livestock. This is super important because there's a Facebook group called Women in Beekeeping, and it's kind of interesting because you'll go like, I don't know what happened. I went out 2 months ago and I checked them, and then they're just all gone. It's like, well, they are. They're like livestock, and you've got to, just like cattle, horses, other things, you've got to check on them. You've got to know that they're doing okay. If you don't have a water source available to them, they will find your neighbor's hot tub. They will find a swimming pool. They will find someplace else to go. So, they're like livestock, and you have to treat them like that. You have to really keep it. Have that attitude. So bees plus flower plus you equals success. This is a picture of a few of the flowers that we have on our bee farm. And, again, do your research even before you start up. I know bees travel 2 to 5 miles, and I know some of the commercial beekeepers will be like, well, it doesn't do you any good to have flowers in your bee yard because they're going to go and travel. Well, they do, but our feeling is, when they're in a time of dearth or the supply isn't very good, they have those flowers in the bee yard, and they can, subsidize a little bit, kind of help their diet and nutrition. A super good source that's been for me has been Pine Hill Nurseries. If you go out there, they are great with helping you for plants in your yard if you're interested in that. They know which ones work here in the South, and they're very because you can have, like, the second flower there is a passion vine. The bees absolutely love it. The other one is a ginger, and then the other one is a rough leaf hydrangea. So not every hydrangea is the same. Like some of the big loppy leaves the bees don't like that. So, if you're going to plant for them, know which flowers are good for them. Two of us, I think I mentioned before, we're master gardeners, so the health and diet of our bees is super important to us. When to start? So the honey flow starts in late January and goes until early February. It coincides with the bloom of the TT and then of the red maple. And that red maple will be coming in January 15th through the 25th, I believe. And then the TT is February 15th through April 25th, is that it? Or April 10th. So I'm just learning all this stuff, but it's really interesting that it's out there. So it's right now. So you're here in this beekeeping class at the exact right time, right? And then there's the graph of flower availability. So you can see this is only 20 of the top plants and trees, but contributing to the honey production. But there are really 57 plants and trees identified, with likely many more that are unidentified. And this graph reflects southern Mississippi. Further north, everything shifts right and compresses. And so note that the peak flow overlapping blooming in April is only 1 week long. So that's a very short amount of time to have that. The summer flow is mainly crops, and the fall flow is aster and goldenrod. And again, it's super important to know this because that's what your bees are surviving on. Because if you maybe have heavy rain or something and they don't get out and get that, you're probably going to have to help feed them a little bit, right? I can see people with questions here, so we'll get to that. This is a graph of seasonal hive population. And you can see that black line approximates colony population, and the bloom drives the growth, but growth is delayed by 6 weeks. Do you see that on the chart? So if the population growth is delayed by 2 weeks, the peak flow will be missed. And high population remains after bloom is gone. So in a dearth, which means there isn't anything for the bees to eat, bees use the gathered food until they die. I know, it's kind of sad, but that's what happens. And, did I answer what you need to start, why you need to start so soon? What are implications for hive management, honey harvest, feeding, mite control, nuke sales? So starting is the hardest. The annual window to start beekeeping is the winter solstice to the vernal equinox. And that is super important. Look it up. Get trained by a mentor. Again, I think I spoke to that quite a bit. You don't know what you don't know. And by having a mentor, find somebody that resonates with you and that you feel good, that kind of has the same take that you have on beekeeping. Buy equipment. Know what equipment you're going to buy by talking to your mentor. Capture a swarm. When I read this on this presentation, I thought, you're nuts, because I wouldn't go into my first year beekeeping capturing a swarm. But let me tell you, there are many people that do. So if that's your thing, I would say that you hook up with a mentor that likes to capture swarms, because they are free bees, right? And then it says starting with 2 hives. Like I said, we're fortunate that we started with 4 hives. And it's really nice because every hive acts differently. It's like homes in a community where, this house is doing one thing, but the other one is doing something totally different. That's how it is with the hives. I had put a sugar candy board on, and I was so happy and pleased with myself. I'm like, yes, I'm doing the girls a favor. Well, one of the hives, I call them hibiscus hotties, that's Sandy's hive, because they just never go according to what the books do, and they were hauling that sugar out like crazy. What I found out is they don't like it if it's above 40 degrees. They don't want that sugar on there. But I didn't know that until they hauled it out. So starting with 2 hives is an excellent way to just compare them. And then if you need to pull resources, you could pull resources and use that other hive. Spring, the average time commitment, it says 1 time a week. This is another one that you're just going to have to work out yourself, because it's really up to you. I would say that we at least spend 5 hours probably a week, and it's nice because we can share the time commitment in the spring and the summer. So in the spring, you're treating for splits, swarms. You're treating. And treating is a big thing, and that's another thing you'll just have to really figure out, because you can't just treat the same treatment. You have to switch your treatments, otherwise they get resistant to that treatment, which is another thing I didn't know. But you soon learn that when you're treating for mites, you have to switch up your treatment. What else do we have? Summer, swarms, supering, extracting. You really want to know in the summer when you are having that flow that you've got your supers and everything ready, because guess what? If those girls went out and they collected a lot and they came back and you don't have frames to put on top, they're probably going to take off because they need the room. We had a hive last summer that got honey-bound because the queens didn't have any room to lay eggs because they brought it in so fast. And that hive ended up making 13 queen cells, but we were able to save the hive by just, I don't know, sheer luck, I guess. But she didn't have room to lay eggs. And as a first-time beekeeper, you're just like, what happened? Because the other 3 hives had plenty of room. They didn't have a problem, but she did, and we were able to save it because we got in there and looked. Fall, treating, wintering, winter, 1 time a month, feeding, getting equipment ready. I'm showing you there a picture of my little box that I have here. We like colors, so this is what I'm pretty proud of myself, because I put this together and I made this little box and I painted it. So that's fun. So that's what you do in the winter. You repair and get things ready for summer. A place for your bees. So here it's showing a picture of a city lot, and it's got the fence behind it, which is nice, but you've got limited space, safety concerns by the neighbors. Remember I said about, it's important to talk to your neighbors, let them know that you're keeping bees. And And the ones with swimming pools, the bees love the swimming pools. They love the hot tubs. They just want to be with you, but people don't necessarily like that. So the acreage is nice, and like I say, that's a picture of Cheryl and I. That's ideal for the bee yard, and it's really nice because where we are, we've got trees on all four sides of us, and so not only does it help keep the bees, out of the neighbor's yard, but it also protects our bees. So if somebody's spraying, so somebody might be spraying in their yard, just not even knowing that they're harming your bees, but that drift, when the wind comes, that drift can take out a whole apiary just by that drift. So you've got to really know the distance from where somebody is spraying. And you can, you let people know, and then you also put up signs, showing that you're having bees. So you don't, hopefully you won't run into that problem. It's really good. Most neighbors are really appreciative that you are keeping the bees and that you're being responsible. But, and then again, the sunny location to keep the beetles at bay and get the girls out of the hive in the morning. And that's it. So any questions anybody has? Yes, you right there up front. What do you feed them? You mean when they can't go out and get their nectar and pollen? Flowers. I give them flowers, and then I also give them a combination of sugar and water. So like in the winter time, you would give them like 2 to 1, but you can only feed them the water up to a certain point, because if it's freezing, the bees can't digest the water. So, but in the summer, you could give them some sugar water. Especially the first year when the bees are starting out, you have to feed them a little extra. That's what we do. Very good question. Anybody else? Yes. Always. There are mice, there are raccoons, there are squirrels. Skunks are a big thing. But the funny thing is, this is kind of funny. Wasp, hornets, all sorts of things are, predators for the bees. In the winter, we put on a mouse guard. So it's something that you put right on the entrance of the hive. We also reduce our entrance as small as we can. I'll show you. You guys are welcome to come up here and look at some of the equipment. But we put a reducer on there, and then over that, we put a mouse guard. But a funny thing, we had, and keep in mind, I'm a first-year beekeeper, okay? So some things I'm just like, oh, my God. There was a cockroach like this big in a hive, and it was right before I was getting ready to go to Costa Rica, and I didn't know how to kill it. I did not know what to do with it, and so I'm like, I'm sorry, girls, I just got to leave it. But I told, I think I'd mentioned it to my husband, and he said, it'll be fine. Well, sure enough, I came back a week, 10 days later, and they had used the propolis, the glue. They had glued that baby to the wall. He was done. And that's what I've seen him do that with, like a wasp that got in there, and he just would not listen to them, and they're like, okay, this is it. So they do have pretty good defenses, but they need our help. But yeah, skunks are a big thing. Fortunately, where we are, our other sister, she rescues dogs. And so we, at any time, have 12 to 15 dogs, and those dogs keep away skunks, raccoons, and other things. So we don't have a lot of critters, or at least not around the apiary right there. Any questions for anybody else? Yes, sir. Weather events. Did you just say weather events? So I'm new to the South. I'm just really new to the South. And I said to my husband, oh my God, they have pictures of like people strapping their hives down for hurricanes. Rather naively of me, I might admit. But yes, we we do try to, have them strapped down. We have, I think they're called ratchets on them. You do have to plan for that. You put bricks on top. You prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. If it's super, super rainy, we check them to make sure they don't have too much condensation in there, because that will kill a hive. There's little tricks, like some people put dimes in between the hives so it's always going forward, or a little stick underneath, like a little paint stick, to tip them forward. But really, once they're in that hive, they're pretty protected unless the hive is knocked over. So does that answer your question? And, we had friends, when I say we had friends, I had friends on Facebook that were in, Louisiana and that, and they had their hive like blown away, and with that last storm and everything, and they were able to locate them and capture most of them and put them back in. So, you just kind of hope that you can find them. And, it's kind of like our homes, right? We can only do so much to kind of secure them down, and then that's all you can do. Anybody else? Any questions?
Right. Hi, everybody. My name's Jane Collins, and I am super glad to have you guys here. We're excited. We didn't know what turnout was going to be for this class. So, man, every day my husband would go, "Oh, this is how many's on the Facebook group now," or "This is." And so I'm kind of glad that he won't be giving me those numbers after today. Somebody asked about the weather. Who was that asked about the weather? Yes, we actually lost 80% of our hives last year due to flooding during Hurricane Ida. We did the ratchet straps, we did all that, but we didn't realize that the water could get so high that it could pick up entire 2x4s that were on cinder blocks, and the cinder blocks and all floated down. Yeah, this is our property off of Minge in Pass Christian. So, we learned a hard lesson last year. We had 11 hives, and we're down to 3 right now due to the flooding. But I'm not worried about it. We're going to do some splits coming up in about a few weeks, and it's going to be all good. But, yeah, the weather here, you can't play with hurricanes. You can't do it. So I'm going to talk about equipment. What do you actually need to do beekeeping? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to use my husband, who's already done a presentation today, is Vanna White, to put together a hive for us. All right, so in a hive, the first thing you're going to have is the bottom board. Okay, this is... Don't expect it to look like it looked when we first got it out of the box. Yeah. Okay, so this would go on a hive stand. Now, a hive stand can be like what I just described a while ago, which is 2x4s on cinder blocks. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it does need to be level. Okay, that's the one big thing. And you want it to be raised off the ground a good bit. Okay, so on top of that, we're going to use a hive box. Now, what this one is that they were pulling up is a deep. You will hear people saying a deep hive box. We use 10 frames, and what a hive box deep is it is a little over 9.5 inches tall. Okay, and so here's one of the frames for that. Again, not as clean as it was when we first got it. You'll see some drawn wax on there. So that is what would be used for the brood or for the bees to have the babies inside of, okay? Do what? Smells like wax? There's a reason for that. So if we were going to do a single brood, which is what I like to run, okay, we're not talking about that right now. This is when you have the husband helping, right? We would then use this, what is called a queen excluder. Okay, what a queen excluder is it lets the other bees go back and forth, the workers, but she's too fat. She can't get both ways in. Okay, so she is going to stay underneath and not go up. You want that, okay? Thank you, Susanna. Okay, so now this is where the babies would be. Got the excluder there. Now we're going to put, ordinarily I would put what we call a medium box on, but we didn't bring a medium box. So this would be where the honey would go, okay? Because remember, the queen can't come up here to have babies. So this is going to be yours. This is going to be for the honey. Now, you're never going to want to rob the bees of all of the honey, okay? So mediums are about 6.5 inches, okay? So it would be about there down. Why do we do mediums instead of deeps? They're lighter. When you're picking up a full deep box of honey, which I made Bob do today to get to this, okay, it can weigh 60, 70, 80 pounds. Yeah, you felt it, didn't you? I'm going to get to that in a second. Yeah. All right, then we are going to put an inner cover on. Yeah, okay, yeah. Because it does have a little bit of ventilation, okay? So we're going to put that on. And then on ours, and don't look at the dead bee. You didn't see that. Okay. Now, now we're going to put on a telescoping cover. Now, what this hive is called is a Langstroth hive. If you've ever heard the term Langstroth hive, that's what this is, okay? Now, there are two different versions of this. One is, and I'll get to that in a slide and coming up, but one is a 8-frame and one is a 10-frame. And in a second, we'll talk about what the difference of that is. Okay, so yes, you do need a hive to be a beekeeper. That's not optional. Okay. You need a smoker. Again, that's not one of those optional things. Some people don't believe in smoke. Some people believe that it's okay to squirt sugar water on the bees, that it works just as good. I like smoke. What it does is it masks the pheromones, so they're kind of confused and don't know what's going on. And you're a lot less likely to get stung if they don't know what's going on. So I believe in the smoker. In the picture, you'll see a full suit. That's not required. I have, this is mine. There's a lot of bee jackets in the world, but this one's mine. Having just a jacket is fine, especially if you're wearing blue jeans or something like this. I do not go out wearing shorts in my jacket. I actually have bee pants for that. You'll see a whole lot of YouTube videos that they're on there with no hat, no veil, no gloves. Yeah, that's not going to be me either, okay? Bees can sense human skin. You messing in their home, they are going to try to protect their home. That's their job. Okay, so I would definitely start off with a bee jacket and the bee gloves. Okay, you can wear blue jeans with that. You don't have to have the full suit. Okay, so great, Jane, but what does this cost? Anybody want to know that? No, okay. All right, yeah. You can go on Amazon and get a decent smoker. $15, $30. They're not too much. It is needed. The one I just got my husband for Christmas right there. It's one from I think Man Lake, and it should last forever. When parts break on it, you can change out the part to puff smoke and all that kind of stuff. Covering your face is imperative. So if you don't have a bee suit, you at least need the veil. I thought I was going to be all smart one time and go ahead and get my bees and just move them a little bit without putting anything on. Yeah, the driveway camera caught me acting a fool when I had about 10 bees in my hair. One of the reasons I keep my hair short is because I knew I wasn't allergic to bees after that day. Okay. 10 stings in one head. But before that, my husband and I went ahead and got some EpiPens. This is just a trainer. Believe me, my kids love to jack me with this. And, oh, we're just practicing. Yeah, okay. They left a bruise this morning, my youngest one did. Okay, but if you do not know if you're allergic or not to bees, I would get your doctor to just write a prescription for one. You don't want to need it and not have it. This is just the practice one. I teach this at work, so I believe in that. Okay. So veil, smoker, hive tool. Okay. The two that are on the graphic up there. I was trying to pull my husband's off this thing, but he's got a magnet like you wouldn't believe. Okay. This one right here is called a J hook. Okay, y'all can see because it kind of does a J. And it pulls up the frame pretty nicely. This is not my favorite, but this is what he likes. The one on the right is standard hive tool. This is mine. I love mine. There are a lot of bee tools in this world. This one's mine. Okay, this one's called a hitchhiker. So you can actually pry the frames apart, and it has the J hook to be able to lift. So again, Amazon, I think they're like $8-9. So not expensive, and you know it's good to have more than one because I promise you they get feet and they walk away. If anything walks away, it's this thing, and you need it. My husband keeps a magnet in his pocket, so it's useful. Okay, so now what does it cost? It's not cheap. Okay, you can go on Amazon to get the starter kits or whatever. So what is in that? Well, there's a couple of deeps in this for the brood. And then the thing underneath that is that's the mediums. That's where the honey would go. Then you have to have frames to put in it. It's the next line item. You got the cover. You got the bottom board. So all that is what we just covered in this. Okay. Bottom line item. I need bees. Yeah, you do. Okay. And we mentioned earlier about the nukes. Okay. You got two choices when you get bees. You can get a package, and that's mailed to you from strangers. Okay. The problem with a package is those bees might not know each other. They're probably definitely not kin to each other. 3 pounds of bees have been dumped into a box, and they grab a queen and they put in there, and then they hope everything goes okay. And then the mailman gets kind of mad because he delivers that to you, okay? My mailman didn't like it when I had 15 baby chickens delivered to me, so I can imagine that they wouldn't like some bees. All right, so the next option is nukes. Again, Bob explained that nuke stands for nucleus. It's the middle frames in there. That Bob showed you what a nuke box could look like. That's the best thing because here's the secret. Those are sisters and the mamas in there. Okay, so when you got sisters and the mama, they're going to be better. Okay, costs. You can get between 125 and 150. I would start looking now. If you want to start with bees this year, February to April, you need to go ahead and get on a list somewhere, okay? And our club does have, Brian, I think you probably can give them the folks that are sellers of nukes, right? We got that list, right? As she was mentioning, Sharon mentioned right before me, I recommend getting 2 hives. And the reason for that is if one of your hives is not doing as well as the other hive, you can kind of steal from Paul to give to Peter, okay? And hopefully both of your hives can make it through there. But if you don't have a second hive, then you got nowhere to go. Okay, so 2 hives. Bob and I both started off with a hive in our backyard. And one day, we looked up in the sky, and there was just a cloud of black. And it was his bees that went bye-bye. These are my girls. His are gone. Okay. we called the preacher. We were like, LaRue, our bees are over your house. We didn't get those bees back. All right. So, yeah, that's really expensive. We get it. Well, our club, our beekeeping club does sell good gloves. They're cheap, $9. I mean, you can't beat that. If you don't want to go in for the full bee suit, at least get the gloves. Wear a white shirt. Don't wear a black shirt. Bees think you're a bear if you're wearing a black shirt. I don't know about you, but I'm already Pooh Bear size. I don't really need anything else to make me look like a bear. Gotta have a veil. Those people on YouTube, yeah, that's not real. Okay. Y'all remember that one girl on YouTube not too long ago? She was just doing a rescue with bees, and she had long flowing hair. Yeah, that's not real. Okay. If you're wearing your blue jeans, you can always tuck them into your boots to try to prevent bees from climbing in your pants. What I did when I first started off is I had a piece of elastic that had Velcro on the ends, and I would put that around my legs, and that made sure that they didn't go in there. Normally, bees don't go in my pants legs. It's because I'm not wearing shorts out there. I'm not one of them people. Okay. You can borrow equipment. At the end of the honey season, if you're a member of our bee club, our club does have honey extractors that you can borrow. That's pretty cool because extractors, they cost. I would be very careful about buying used woodenware equipment. Yes, you can do that. But if the people that had that wooden boxes before had bees that had brood disease, American foul brood, or something like that, then you're destined to have a colony that dies. So just be careful with that. Things that you can do is you can definitely clean all of your equipment. What Bob and I do is we actually burn the inside of our equipment, even our own equipment, after it's been used, just to kind of purify it. Purify by fire, right? Okay, by fire. Team up with other members for purchases. A lot of times you can save on shipping if you go in with a few other people. That helps with shipping, with boxes and that kind of stuff. Bottles. You can catch swarms. That's iffy. Okay. You cannot control if you catch a swarm or not. So buying the nuke is a much better thing. And then people that are experienced woodworkers can make their own boxes. Right now, I am building my own horizontal hive. Sharon talked about a little bit ago about horizontal hives that we learned about. Yeah, so it looks like I'm building my own coffin in my front yard right now. But the reason for that is it is a whole lot easier for me. I'm hitting 50 this year. Woo! To lift frames out of a thing than try to pick up a 100-pound box. My neck and back won't do it. So a horizontal hive is an interesting one for women to look into. The bad part, though, is you can't just go out and buy a horizontal hive. You can look at the plans, but you kind of got to know somebody to help you build that. Yeah. I think they'll start being more popular as more women get into this. And I'll tell you another thing the horizontal hives are good for. They're good for disabled folks, folks in wheelchairs. They can put it at the hive, at the level that they need, and still be able to be beekeepers. I love that. All right, so swarms. My goodness. Everybody wants to catch a swarm. Swarms aren't easy. Bob, can you pick up this swarm trap? This is one of our 3 swarm traps. Yeah. I need to get my money back on this, right? No, just leave it there. It's cool. Okay, so the right size for a swarm trap is, you can see on the thing, is at least 40 liters in volume. And that's because bees need a certain amount of space. And they're going to be looking for a place to light. Okay, so where should I put a swarm trap? I would put it on a fence line, okay, and it needs to be high enough for the bees to find, usually 12 to 14 feet up there. Neither my husband or I are 12 to even on a ladder. That was kind of complicated. See that thing that says 3 to 75? How would you get 75 feet off the ground? My goodness. You're going to put that on a... You're going to put that in a bucket truck or something. I don't know. You do need to have an attraction in there for the bees to want to go there. Definitely old comb. If you can get old comb from anybody else on a used frame, that's great. They sell a lure that you can put in there, but really what the lure is lemongrass oil. So you can get lemongrass extract or the essential oil. Put it on some Q-tips, put it in there, and that's a good lure to get you a swarm. And free bees, right? Free bees are always a good thing. If y'all don't want them, give me a call. I'll come take your free bees. Okay. So this shows the difference between an 8-frame box and a 10-frame box. This is a 10-frame box. 8-frame box, better for women. It's smaller, but you know there are some down sides of it, which is it's harder to find equipment for 8 frames. Most of the world runs on these 10-frame boxes. Okay, 10-frame boxes are much heavier. That's a downside. The top picture is a 5-frame box, which is essentially a nuke size. Which that's a nuke. And nukes can be plastic like we have there. It can look like this. Or it can be a corrugated cardboard box, which is what we started off with. Okay, so depending on who you go to get your first nuke, you're going to get probably either the plastic one or the corrugated cardboard. All right, so frames now. Frames, you got to have the right amount. So let's say you're running a 10 box. You are going to have to buy, right here, what will we have? 20 frames. Okay, 20 frames. Now, there are some differences in the foundation. Folks that do cut comb and all, they use straight wax foundation. That's hard. You got to actually wire it and all that kind of stuff. So that's not the beginner. What I would do is that middle one, which is partial plastic with wax coating. Okay, you put these together. It comes in a kit. You have to nail the little pieces of wood together. Bob, pull me out one. But they're great. They go in the spinners good when you're extracting honey. Y'all didn't see that dead bee. Okay. And this is what it looks like. Okay. You're going to have an option of 3 colors. Okay. They make black, which we use for the brood. So it's easier for us to see eggs under the black. Okay. For the honey supers, really using yellow or white is what you're going to do in the honey supers. Okay. Again, black, use that for the brood, and yellow for the honey. Okay. People are starting to go to all plastic, which is another option that you don't have to put the wood together at all. It's a little bit more expensive. I would say if you use that, make sure that you start off with some wax on that. You can get some beeswax. You can order at some cosmetic type companies. and melt some on there. That way the bees don't have to work as hard. They're not going to love frames that have no wax on them, okay? And that's it on my part. I did some show and tell for you guys. So, hit me with some questions. What y'all got? Yes. Yes, there will be frames in there. The best thing to do would be to put old frames in there because they want to smell that bees have been here, okay? So put old frames, and you're also going to put some lemongrass oil in there. Yes? On open frames, foundationless, we tried that when we first started, okay? When you do that, you cannot use an extractor to get your honey out. You literally have to destroy the whole thing. You got to do what's called the crush and strain method. And the other problem down here is it gets so hot that sometimes the wax in it kind of deforms a little bit. Now, I understand, and we wanted to try it when we first started because we wanted bees to do what bees want to do. And it was cool. Yeah, it was cool to watch. But again, the extraction point is a lot harder when you do foundationless because you got to destroy it, which means bees have to totally start over next year. There's nothing for them to be able to go with. But that's a great question.
Could you also share that some folks who sell nukes, what you do is you bring your hive box to them?
Yeah.
So that you're not receiving a nuke box.
Yeah. What he's saying is some people don't want to give you the plastic box or the corrugated, so you might have to bring your own box. We did have to do that the first time. So we have one that looked a lot like this. You can turn this dial when it's not painted in place. Apparently I painted it in place, so I'm going to have to work on that later. And it closes off, and I would strap it down, and you can transport bees that way. Some people don't. You get the bees out there, put them in your box, and go. I would definitely check with the person before I go there to ask them. And you can order these little plastic boxes on any of the beekeeping websites, and I imagine you can get them on Amazon as well. Any other questions? Well, and this is empty. So imagine this with honey and bees. I mean, the bees aren't what's weighing you down. It's the stuff that the bees have got on the frames. All right, any other questions? Levi, you got a question? Oh, man. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Hello again. I'm Brian Smith. Really didn't introduce myself well to begin with. I've been a beekeeper for about 5 years. I live up in Loosedale right now. Very fortunate to have a swamp on the land I live on. It runs down Rocky Creek and down into Escataba. So I get a lot of maple and bay, and then there's a lot of yopon on my property. It really makes a real tasty honey. So in the couple slides in the very beginning, flowers and work and bees make success. The kind of flowers, it turns out. Honey is like politics. It's all local. It really matters where you are. But in the city, there's all sorts of different flowers. In the wintertime, there's camellias. In the summertime, there's all different flowers that people plant. Out in the rural area, you got the trees, you got cotton crops, you got soybean. So it's all different. And the best thing is when it's diverse, when it's all sorts of things. We discovered that the bees love our camellia bushes. We put in some Mexican heather, which bloom from June until first frost. We have a bunch of other trees, and we're always seeing bees around that. In fact, the satsumas out there, once I put in bees, I went from about 2 dozen to about 3 bushels of satsumas on my trees. It was amazing. You can't really taste the orange in the honey because there's so many other things, but I know they're there. It makes a big difference. So I've really enjoyed beekeeping. There are so many different things to learn, and as a woodworker, I enjoy making all the various boxes and that. I use a tongue oil, so all my boxes are natural colored. On the outside, tongue oil is a finish made from the tongue nut tree that's pressed, and it plasticizes. It turns to plastic as it soaks in and absorbs. So what's nice is when I scrape the propolis, the bee glue off, my tool doesn't tear into it. So that's something I've discovered. So I have fun doing that too. So it keeps me at home on the weekends and during the week. Let's see. So how do you gain experience? You get out there and work it, okay? Mentors are good. They can show you what works near you. What works up in Loosedale for me does not work the same. I just talked to someone. He's just east of here. Is pollen coming in already? Okay, I don't have pollen yet. I'm 50 miles to the north of here. Okay, so it makes a difference where you are. Okay, if you've got questions, even if the folks you've talked to have just been working on this for a year. I've been working on it for 5 years. My mentor had something like 50 years, okay? But we're all succeeding. We're all doing well, okay? Mentors will answer your questions, and these days, well, my mentor did not use the internet. He didn't know how to use the internet. There's a lot of answers out on the internet. A lot of them are different, because what someone says for living in Ohio or Vermont is going to be very different from down here. But if I get on the internet for Loosedale, it's going to be different down here. So there's general principles, and then there's what's happening local. You really have to adapt it to where you are here. So visit a bee yard. Learn what's available. Learn how they can always help you, especially when something sudden happens and you don't know what's going on, when you seem to be in a crisis mode. A successful year, nectar and pollen available within 2 miles. Okay, if you're in the city, that is not a problem. If you're in a rural area, they don't like pine trees. They will not go to pine trees for pollen. There's a lot of pollen on pine. They don't like it. Okay, it has to be hardwood trees. Yeah, I mean, I get pollen all over my vehicles and that. It's all over, but bees don't go to it. It's got too much resin in it. You need good weather, warm, moderate rain. Last year, I measured in 2021, I had 109 inches of rain in my property. And I got less than half the amount of honey. Too much rain is not good. It rinses off all the pollen, rinses off the nectar. But a moderate rain to keep the plants growing and healthy, that's what you need. So depends on the year. You need strong hives, good queens, which means they're no older than 2 years. Then the workers draw lots of comb, but if you can provide them the comb, if you keep on recycling comb, extract it and give it back to them, they'll do good. And then you need to have equipment. Now, if you have 2 boxes and maybe 1 or 2 supers, and you have 1 hive and you just let it go, it's going to swarm. That's what bees do. They want to swarm. There's some ways you can delay it. But you say, fine, I'm going to wait for next year and we'll get more honey next year. You're not going to lose all your bees. You'll only lose half of them. Okay? But in the meantime, that swarm went out somewhere in the wild. And it'll find a place and grow. I mean, you're not a commercial beekeeper. You're not trying to keep 1,000 to 10,000 hives. It's one at a time. Every little bit helps. So some people just let them swarm. Other people, I'm going to take that swarm and duplicate my hives. I'm going to get 2 next year. And the year after that, I'm going to get 4. That's a different way to do it. You get to choose how you run it, how much time you have, how much money you want to put into it, how many friends you have to drink honey or take honey from you. You know, that's usually not a problem, but so how to keep them strong. Inspect at least once every 2 weeks. Even if you just lift the lid and you know what you're looking at, or you can lift it in the springtime, if you lift it from the bottom and see if there's any queen cells along the bottom, you can see if they're ready to swarm. We'll talk about, you can do some research on what causes them to swarm. Well, it's reproduction, but how you prevent swarming. There's various things you can do to prevent swarming. You basically, in most ways, you fool them and think that they already have swarmed. You need to feed from time, new bees, new hives need to be fed until you move them and their box is either full of bees or you have 2 boxes, maybe 1 full of bees and 1 full of honey. You need to help them to start out, because if they started as a swarm, they took half the resources of their old hive with them. So they're full of honey, they're already started wax, and they're ready to go. They're ready to go to a totally empty place. Swarms are the best thing to start off with. However, you're getting what they call a feral hive. You don't know what the genetics. There's a lot of commercial beekeepers who've been working on genetics of breeding their bees for production or for gentleness. We bought one, they'd been doing it, his great-grandfather started breeding bees. And this guy had really good bees. I got a couple of them, and they were very productive. If you just go out in the wild, you don't know where they came from or what's going on. But the first 4 that I got were swarms, and they did well. So you need to treat for mites. Varroa are all over the place. You can't get away from it. So there's a number of different treatments, and we'll talk about that in the next class of how to knock down the Varroa and keep your hives and your colonies safe and strong. Yeah, we recommend 2 hives to start with. Okay? But if you're willing to take a chance, if you get through the first year, you're going to have 2 hives the second year. So play with 1. If you lose it through the winter, okay, you got to buy new bees or go find another nuke. But if you can if you're careful with it, if you feed it well, if you treat it for mites, you're going to have 2 in the second year. And then you're going to have 4. And you grow from there. How many do you want to grow? So we have 2 local clubs. I belong to both of these clubs. Gulf Coast is in Gaucher, and Red Creek is up 49. It's at the Sunflower Community Center in Perkison. Okay, that one meets the last Monday of, fourth Monday of the month, and the Gulf Coast meets the 2nd Tuesday, just next week. Pardon? Yes, we meet at 6 o'clock. It says 7. This is from when we were at Gaucher. Yes, but it is at Big Ridge Road. It's at 6 o'clock. We have to get that one changed. Okay. The Red Creek is at 7. So, okay. Bring a chair if you're coming to the Gulf Coast one on Tuesday, yes. It's in a bee barn, so you got to bring your own seating. Sitting on one of these boxes is sort of uncomfortable. Okay, information. We have, most of you probably got here through our Facebook site, and Bob is the administrator of that. Besides Facebook, National Honey Board is, I believe it's .com. It's a nationwide organization, American Beekeeping. So all these are well-known websites. YouTube, we just mentioned a few. Dirt Rooster, Barnyard Bees, Jason Crispin, Cayman Reynolds, Bob Binney. These Butts Bees is local. She's over in Pascagoula. And then there's some forums. There's beesource.com and beekeeping forums. Those are nice because you can ask questions and people will respond to you. Oh, my bees are doing this. What's going on? Do I need to worry about it? And you'll get 15 people and you'll get 16 opinions, but you can figure out what's going on. Because bees will do different things for different reasons. But it's good to go out and read that, and there's usually a consensus. Books, Beekeeping for Dummies, Beekeeping, a Practical Guide, How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey, the Hive. You can go to a bookstore and find a variety of them, and I think there's some up here. You can go to the library. You can, you go to Mississippi, State University of Mississippi, and there's a section. You can read about bees. You can go to other states. Florida has a bunch of stuff. California has a bunch of stuff. Agricultural states, the universities in agricultural states have a lot of resources because commercial beekeepers are essential for agriculture. And as much information as they have, it flows over to us we call it hobbyists. If you have less than, 50? I think roughly, if you have less than 50, you're considered a hobbyist. 50 to 300 is a, quote, sideliner, because it's your side business. It's not really, it's almost a full business. And anything over 500, there are people that run, with two people, you can run probably 800 to 1,200 hives. I know a gentleman who has 10,000 or 100,000 hives. He's just a businessman. He doesn't get out there. He probably did once in a while, but now he has a whole bunch of employees to do it. So, beekeeping is a big business. It's important. Here's two magazines, and we have the copies of them here. Suppliers. Here's a list of suppliers. Bee Gold Honey is in Hattiesburg, so they're nearby. We used to have one over in D'Iberville, but they closed. So all of these are mail order. And like Man Lake, you have to have a $100 order or more will be free shipping. So that's pretty worthwhile. The joys of making it another year. You're not going to have to invest as much if you have all your hives. And you can always split into 2 hives. I actually split in the spring and in August, just before the goldenrod flow. And like this year, I split 5 of the hives and 4 took. I had a mated queen in 4 of them, so that was pretty good. I think this year I'm also going to be using mating nukes, which is a 2-frame box rather than a 5-frame box. So if I split it, I could actually take almost 10 frames and make 5 baby nukes out of it. And if 3 of them took, if I had a 60% success rate, I'm still ahead of the game. Your comb is important. Comb, the wax takes, it's 7 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. But the amount of wax on a particular frame, I don't know my estimate is probably about between an ounce to a full ounce of wax. It's a lot less wax. So 7 pounds of honey is a lot of energy to make wax, but you don't need very much. The wax is really interesting because it's very strong, and it's very lightweight, and it has a lot of uses. I use it on all my tools to keep them from rusting. You can use it for lubrication. There's a lot of things. So wax is really important. But if you have drawn comb, they just refill. Okay? They don't have to make new. It's all there. They can just start putting honey into it. Every year, you learn more and more and more. And whether you learn it through reading or watching YouTube or watching your bees, it just grows. And you just enjoy it more and more. At least that's what I have found. Customer growth. Okay, you've been selling honey for 1 year, your customers are coming back. Okay, or your friends are coming back and you're not going to make any money. But everybody knows you make honey or knows you have bees who do it. And it's always nice to visit people and leave something sweet behind. So that's it. I hope we've told you enough to let you understand whether you're interested in this or not. It takes a commitment. And if you're starting to get interested, at least attend the next meeting and it will start going into more details of the hows of things, how to do things. If this seems like too much, go ahead and walk away. Okay? You've had your first taste of what beekeeping is all about, and if it seems like it's overwhelming, that's fine. That's your decision. You've met people here who, I'm not going to say are obsessed with it, but we're definitely committed to it because we've been into it and we love it. Okay? A little sting here and there has not put us off the game. So I hope you guys can find this as enjoyable as we do. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks.